You know, after a year and 6 seasons of competitive play in Overwatch, I feel it's only fair that so many players are starting to express their dislike for things that, quite frankly, have not improved since launch. And today I would like to present 3 reasons that, given the discussions I've been following, seem to be the main problems for why competitive Overwatch just doesn't feel satisfying to a lot of players. Needless to say that for a bunch of us, playing competitively is the only right way to play Overwatch. As much as outside voices like to label the game as casual, reality is that for so many of us, the hint of coordination that we get in competitive play has us enjoy our time in Overwatch far more. Now, for every problem I discuss on this channel, players usually have at least 20 different proposed solutions, but that's not the focus of today's video. I want to lay down the groundwork for further discussions surrounding this topic. Reporting on problems left, right, and center is fine and all, but at some point we have to consider long-term solutions, so feel free to join the discussion. If you think that the 3 reasons I list today are not the core of the problem, then let me know what you think and let us have some discussions on how to solve them down in the comment section below. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Number 1, the lack of gating mechanisms. Now, I have spent a lot of time on this channel trying to explain where the inconsistencies in our competitive experience come from. I've been taking a look at the core skill sets that make a player truly skillful in Overwatch, discussed the balance between heroes across different levels of play on ladder, and ultimately came to the conclusion that the solo queue experience in Overwatch is flawed by default. If you would like to have the full experience of these respective discussion points, feel free to check out the videos by following the card in the top right corner or the links down in the description below. But through all of these discussions, there's one problem we can clearly point at as a very obvious culprit, and that is the lack of a gating mechanism. Now, for all of you not familiar with this principle, a gating mechanism is something that's in place to stop players from progressing indefinitely. In an RPG, a gating mechanism could be a boss fight, for example. You are not going to be able to further progress in the game unless you have beaten that boss. In this case, the purpose is obviously to be able to streamline a player's gameplay experience and tell a coherent storyline without the player just skipping to whatever part he wants. In competitive games, gating mechanisms are often much more subtle. For example, in a classic shooter, you would not be able to further progress your rating unless you get better at all the things that the game wants you to be good at. So if the game says that your reaction time, aim, and map knowledge have to be equally on par for you to further progress, then you don't get into a higher rating unless you do provide all of these things. The way it enforces that mechanism is simply through the urgency of these skill sets in the core gameplay experience. It simply means that all of these skill sets are so fundamentally engraved into the game that you won't be able to beat other players who are good at these things unless you are good at them as well. The long and short of it is that the lack of such a gating mechanism allows players to rank up almost indefinitely by just being really good at one particular thing. And that thing could be good enough to win a decent amount of games, but it is not always going to help them win every game. There is nothing in Overwatch that forces us as players to improve our aiming, tracking, positioning, and game sense all at the same time. Hence, we might very well come across someone with godlike aim but garbage game sense and positioning, causing them to die a whole lot unless we play around them, and I think that many of us can agree to is not the competitive experience we have been looking for. Number 2, too many bad seeds. Now, I want to be very clear with this point. Bad seeds are not just people who practice things that are a bannable offense like getting toxic or throwing games. If you're not willing to cooperate with your team, you shouldn't be playing ranked. If you're not willing to swap off of your hero, you should not be playing ranked. If you throw games after losing the first engagement, you should not be playing ranked. And I could keep going like this. Reality is that Overwatch is unlike many other competitive games. The fact that a single player not pulling their weight can cost you a match is beyond frustrating when you constantly encounter players who honestly just straight up should not be competing on ladder. Of course, we got the promise from the dev team that they are going to increase the severity of punishments for players who do practice anything that is a bannable offense, but it's not just these things that ruin the competitive experience. I mean, as a developer, you have to be aware of what kind of game you created. You have to realize that players who one-trick and players who refuse to cooperate in a game that is so incredibly team-based is a terrible thing for those of us who want to participate in legitimate competition. Way too many matches are decided by the mood of a single player refusing to adhere to the most basic concepts that the game has been built on, and that is frustrating. Yes, we are lucky to play in a system that is performance-based rather than solely caring about our win-loss ratio, but quite frankly, we shouldn't be losing these games to begin with. I, as many others, am tired of winning and losing matches because some guy refuses to swap off of their hero, and the sooner we find a solution for these problems, the better. And lastly, number 3, balancing. Now I definitely want to cut the devs some slack here because a lot of the whining I hear in regards to balancing is quite frankly ridiculous. Players call maps poorly designed after playing on them for a single time. They complain about hero changes after trying them out in the practice range just once, or cry that something is OP after losing a single match. And honestly, we as content creators also have our fair share of blame to take. Us constantly drooling after anything that we can call meta just to get our clickbait out as fast as possible contributes to the player base feeling like something is way more relevant than it really is. But reality is that sometimes these complaints are not baseless, and it honestly frustrates me to have a developer state something like the dive meta being fine and exciting to watch. A meta that literally had the purpose of taking out 33% of a team in the first 15 seconds of a team fight, namely your support players. I mean, sure, for me personally, when I get tired of playing support, I just play my ult account, but not everyone has that possibility. What does it feel like for a support main to try and be a good teammate as one of the only players in their team playing a healer for a warmongering pack of DPS mains just to then get taken out almost instantly every time they leave spawn? Is that something you call exciting? Because I'm sure these players beg to differ. And the fact that I hear a statement like this followed by an interview where you claim that hero balance in Overwatch is easier than in other games because you can tweak the counters surrounding a problem rather than being forced to tweak the problem itself, do you have any idea what that makes you look like? Well, let me tell you, it makes a lot of players feel like you don't know what you're talking about, and we get frustrated. We had to endure that for an entire season before anything changed, and I mean, you're aware that you don't even need to tweak these heroes in particular. Quite frankly, players are like sheep, just tweak anything else and we will feel forced to try it out. And you did, and it happened. Why didn't you do it sooner? Before, you know, half the cast of relevant streamers quit the game along with what felt like a third of your competitive community. Yes, I am frustrated, and I am not the only one. The way you handle hero balance and the fact that you take your sweet time to fix anything is annoying as all hell. And oh look, despite you saying that dive is fine, D.Va's defense matrix has been tweaked. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I don't think anyone is. Okay, alright, admittingly, I got a little emotional over that last point. You can get dove on only so often before you quit the game for something like Minecraft. Disregarding what was effectively an angry tantrum, the points stand. The 3 reasons I chose to be the main problems that make Overwatch rank play feel awful are the lack of a gating mechanism, the sheer amount of players competing on ladder that honestly shouldn't be there to begin with, let alone in a high rank, and the way hero balance has been handled up until now. And this is where your guys' input is requested. Let's try to have as much of a civil discussion as possible and talk about the points I have brought up today, as also other points you guys deem important. Until then, I highly recommend you guys go check out my video on the solo queue problem, as it adds valuable context to the discussion, and obviously it is in my best interest to have you guys give me some more of that sweet watch time. But anyway, this is me done for the day, so thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to leave me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you all next time.